Hey everyone, welcome back to Hacky Lessons for another One Piece deck profile, and today we're looking at the Yellow Big Mom leader and specifically built her around the Homie engine, so Prometheus and Zeus. So this is a relatively budget deck profile in the sense that I'm not using the category Secret Rare, and most of the cards are from the starter deck. There's a few from the set, but you know, SR's gone pretty cheap lately, so the leader card, if you don't know what she does, she has Don times 2. When attacking, you may add one card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand. And then if you have 2 or less life cards, add up to 1 card from your hand to the top of your life. So what this allows you to do is basically make sure the triggers, the cards with triggers, like Zeus and Prometheus for example, are in your life. You can only put them in your life when you are at 2 or less life. So if you activate this ability when you're at 3 life, you take a life and then that puts you at 2, which means you can put the life back down, so you're back at 3. So from 3 onwards, the ability works. You can use it earlier if you want to, if you just need to draw a card or get your life a little bit lower, because there are a few cards that get their abilities when you have less life than your opponent. So there might be an instance where you have the same amount of life of them and you need to fix that, so you just put 2 Don onto your leader attack, take that life, and then your cards will work. So let's look at the Homie engine. First card to put in the deck is pretty important. It is the Queen Mom Enchanter. It's a stage card. You can come out for trigger, or you can pay 2 Don to play it. The reason why this is important is because it protects your Zeus and Prometheus. You can hide them, you can use their abilities and then throw them back into life so your opponent can't kill them on their turn. So activate main, rest this stage, and add 1 card from the top and bottom of your life cards to your hand, and then add up to 1 of your characters with a cost of 3 to the top of the owner's life cards, face up. So face up, so you remember, your opponent remembers. And yes, you basically just protect your homies. So the homies in question, we have 4 copies of Zeus and 4 copies of Prometheus. There is a third homie, which is Napoleon. He's, he's less important, so I didn't find room for him in this build. You could put him in if you wanted to, but I'm just focusing on Zeus and Prometheus, because Zeus will give a Big Mom banish, and Prometheus will give a Big Mom double attack. Get them both out at the same time, and that's pretty good. Double attack and banish. They just cost 3. They can be played from trigger, so that's ideally how you're going to do it. And then you just rest them and give one of your Big Mums the skill that it says. So that could be your leader card, which is Big Mom, or it could be one of your character card Big Mums. Character cards are stronger than the leader cards, so let's have a look at some of the character cards we can use for this ability. In the starter deck is the 7 cost Big Mom. So she has 8,000 power, and on play your opponent has to choose one. They can let you recover a life, or they can trash one of their own. So that's Big Mom's Soul Focus ability. And then you have the SR from the set, and it is the 10 cost Big Mom. She is kind of the best of both worlds. She's a stronger version of the 7 cost, so she has 12,000 power. She costs 10, but on play, you add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life, and your opponent trashes 1 card from the top of their life. So pretty good when you can get her out, but you've got to be careful because you are using all of your Don for the turn to do it. But once you have either of these characters out, your homies become much more useful because these Big Mums are stronger than your leader card. So attacking with Big Mom is the focus of the deck, but it's not the only cards we have for it. So I have 3 copies of Katakuri. This card is in the starter deck, and he costs 4, has 6,000 power, and on play, you look at the top card of either your life or your opponent's life, and then you can put them back at the top or the bottom. So that's a good way of seeing if the card you want to have trigger is on top of your life or not. Or you could check your opponent's life and make sure that you're not going to be hit by a trigger when you attack them. And then if you have less life than your opponent, Katakuri gains Rush. So that's one of the examples of why you might want to take a life earlier. And then for 3 copies of Cracker. So Cracker, he can come out for trigger, but you got to trash a card to do it. Costs 4, has 5,000 power, and Dawn Times 1, if you have less life than your opponent, this character gains double attack and an extra 1,000 power, so it's pretty good. Search for the deck is Pudding. So she just looks at the top 4, and she can either find a Big Mum Pirate or a Sanji. 2k counters for the deck. Pudding, if you play her, she can look at the top card of your life or your opponent's life and then put it back at the top and bottom, and then she's just 2k counter. And then there is Sanji. Sanji's a pretty good one, pretty good turn 1 play if you go second. He costs 2, has 3,000 power, and Dawn Times 2, when attacking you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand, and then add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life. So it's kind of drawing a card, but if you also know what the top card of your life is, it's a way of getting rid of that out of your life if it's not the card that you want to be at the top of your life. You know, it doesn't have a trigger or whatever, or you want it in your hand. Defensive options, we have 4 copies of Brûlée. So she does cost 3, which is pretty dog shit, but she can be played for trigger, so you don't have to actually pay the cost to play her if you just use your leader's ability and make sure that she's in your life, and then she'll just be played off the trigger. And then you have 2 copies of Shirley. She also costs 3, but she's a little bit more worth it because she also has the on-play ability to look at the top card at the top of your life or your opponent's life, so place it back on top and bottom. So just a little bit more of that knowledge of what's going to be coming in the life. And then for a event card counter, it is Ikoku Sovereignty, which is pretty strong, costs 2 and gives you 5,000 counter power. And then finally, 3 copies of Buzzcut Mochi as a little bit of removal. I don't love it entirely because it only works if you have less life than your opponent. So there is another option. You could use Thunderbolt, which hits something higher, but you have to also trash one of your own life. So I mean, it really depends if you're okay with doing that. I think that card is probably a little bit better in Black Yellow Big Mum. Buzzcut also has a trigger that plays a character card of cost of 4 or less and a trigger ability from your hand. So what you can do, if this card is dead in hand, you could put this into your life with your Big Mum Leader ability, and then use it to play either Cracker or one of your homies. So that's the deck. Finding it a lot of fun. Obviously the meta choice for yellow is Katakuri. Everyone's on the Katakuri train, but Big Mum ain't no slouch either. So yeah, if you have your yellow starter decks and you don't really have the stuff for Katakuri, he's more of an expensive build, I'm sure. You'll notice I didn't use any of the Pero Sparrow. I think the card's good and I would like to fit it in the deck, but I just had a little bit too many cards without counter power. The thing with this deck is you don't mind taking life too much. So you want to be lower life than your opponent. So you'll take a few hits that you might defend a little bit harder in other decks, but you don't mind because you're going to be able to recover it later, and you want to have less life so those abilities that require less life can work. And as a result of that, you end up having a pretty good hand size. It is a little bit of an adjustment of playstyle for me personally. I tend to protect life a bit harder than I do in Big Mum. In Big Mum, it's sort of like, alright, I'll let this go through. Maybe something with trigger will pop out, or I know something with trigger will pop out. But you also got to be mindful that if your opponent is, banking on you playing something with the trigger and they're going to remove it, you got to play around that as well. If they got like 4 Don up and they're like, alright, a jet pistol's coming, maybe I protect this life. Hopefully they'll attack again after they've used the Don up, and then they can't remove your homies or whatever that comes out on trigger. It's a little bit of a chess match in that regard, but it's fun. So I recommend checking it out, and stay subscribed to this channel because I'm going to try and put out new deck profiles every week or 2. There's a lot of decks in OP03 that excite me, so I'm going to play a lot more of a variety of decks during this set's lifespan. Stick around and you'll see all the decks I'm playing. Alright, see you later.